Hey guys, it's me Simo Orohoro, and in this video, we're going to talk about the Espada and their role in the final war of the Quincy arc. We'll also explore whether there was a chance for new additions regarding them, and of course what happened to them after the final battle between Yhwach and Ichigo. Because as I mentioned guys in previous videos, the Espada were the core of the Arrancar arc. They were the main enemy the Shinigami had to overcome before facing Aizen Sasuke himself. Their personalities, backstories, and the way they were introduced made them some of the most fascinating and popular characters in Bleach. And this was actually one of the key factors that elevated the success of the story, especially following the major impact of the Soul Society arc, which focused heavily on the grand introduction of the captains. The Arrancar arc did the same thing, but in a different way. Kubo took his time to introduce each one of them and building a unique environment around them. It all started with the legendary appearance of Yami and Ilikura, and then came the chemistry between Ilikura and Ichigo Kurosaki, followed by Grimmage's arrival and his epic clashes with Ichigo in Karakura Town. We also met the other Arrancars who gave us insight into their world and how the Espada stood at the top of Aizen's army. Kubo continued doing this and raising events until we reached the climax, or the beginning of the climax, with the arrival of the four captains to Wikomondo, right after Ichigo's battle with Grimmage ended and just before the Grand War began in the fake Karakura town. That's when the fate of the Espada began to take a mysterious turn, guys, as they started to fall one by one. It began with Aranino's death and Grimmage's defeat, followed by the other Espada being taken down by the captains in Wikomondo, and finally Ilikura's loss to Ichigo and the downfall of the rest in the fake Karakura town. All of this left the fate of the Espada shrouded in mystery. It felt like their story had truly ended, like Ilikura, who turned to ash, or Reappearance and Araniro, who were later revealed to have been sent to hell. And back then, based on what we have seen about the Hell in the events of the fourth movie, it was widely believed that the Hell concept had been concluded in that movie, and so their stories were considered over. But the Hell one-shot proved that it is wrong. And because the arc that came after the Arrancar arc didn't involve or mention the Arrancar at all, the fate of the remaining Espada remained vague, except for a light novel released after that arc, which stated that Halibel and her followers had survived thanks to Orim healing them, eventually returning to Wikomondo. However, Kubo's preparation for Thousand Year Blood War arc gave us many insights into some of the groups that would return, and among them were the Arrancars. And in his interviews released before that arc, Kubo confirmed that the Arrancar would come back, but this time as allies. At first he avoided giving us too many details, like whether they would really be allies or how they would return, but he hinted at the return of 3 Arrancars, 2 Espada and 1 former Espada. And so he confirmed that Grimmage would return as an ally, and the same thing for Halibel and Nell, and those were Kubo's official confirmations. Meanwhile, the editors created a prediction chart for the Espada before the arc began. So as we can see, Baragan, Ilikura, Yami, Reappearance and Araniro, their return considered impossible. However guys, what caught my attention were the Espada who were not completely ruled out, but their return was very difficult, and those being Stark, Noichura and Zumari. That means that the editors believed that there was still a small chance for these characters to return, especially since their defeats didn't necessarily confirm their death, unlike Baragan or Ilikura. But eventually guys, when the Quincy arc began, Kubo laid out the framework for how the Arrancar would return and which ones would be. And this was shown through the appearance of Arrancar's characters working under the Quincy's. And Ebrin was one of the first new characters to appear as enemy who confronted Ichigo. Ebrin appeared to be an Arrancar. He was wearing a Quincy cross, which was completely unusual. And things became even stranger when Ebrin returned to his base, which was revealed that he and the others were merely low-ranking soldiers serving the Van der Reich. It was then that the truth came out. The Quincy's had invaded the Wikomondo, led by Yhwach himself, who had defeated and captured Halibel. In the anime, this scene was fully shown, while in the manga, Halibel was simply shown imprisoned inside Yhwach's castle. And as a side note guys, this scene is actually the only time Halibel appears in the manga, during this arc. That's why I strongly expect we will see new and expanded scenes of Halle Berry in Cour 4 of the anime. And shortly after that, in chapter 485, Neil appeared alongside Peasky, I think that's his name. Their arrival to warn Ichigo clarified a lot of new details. Most importantly guys, as I mentioned before, the Quincy's occupation of Weak Commando and how they had taken full control of it. Peasky also confirmed that after Stark's death, Halle Berry had become the new ruler or queen of Weak Commando. As for Grimijo, his reappearance in this arc was filled with suspense, crafted by Kubo himself. It started with the reveal of his sword in chapter 500 in front of Oro Arakisugi, followed by a glimpse of his body and voice when Squad Zero made their appearance, and eventually he finally appeared in the Royal Palace alongside Nail to join the battle with Ichigo and the others. And unfortunately guys, the return of Nail and Grimijo in this arc didn't carry the same weight of and the excitement as before. Their reappearance felt like a missed opportunity to explore how their characters had grown, what happened to Grimijo after his fight with Ichigo, how he tried to improve himself, and what Nail had been doing after Ichigo left. All of that could have been shown through some new battles, new flashbacks, and meaningful interactions. But as we have seen, that didn't happen. Grimijo and Nail's roles were mostly tied to Oroha's plan and his instructions he had given them. Grimijo helped to defeat Asuka and Naklovar, while Nail stepped in to save both Grimijo and Oro Arakisugi. As for Halle Berry guys, as I mentioned before, she remained imprisoned until Nail arrived and rescued her alongside with the others. Of course, we didn't get to see that directly in the manga, but it was revealed in a novel, which also included other interesting details, such as Halle Berry's reaction to seeing the new Ryu with Nail and the rest, and how she commented on his appearance and understood why Aizen wanted to eliminate him, Ryu. That's why guys, I believe the final part of the anime, the second season, is a perfect chance to give more spotlight to Nail and Grimijo and to explore how Halle Berry was saved, and maybe even include some elements from the novel, because bringing these characters back shouldn't be done without giving them the depth and development they truly deserve. In the end guys, what do you think about the path of Nail, Grimijo and Halle Berry, and what do you expect to see as a new detail and scenes for them? Tell me guys in the comments, and see you in my next video.